Have you ever wondered how long Adam and Eve stayed in the Garden of Eden before being banished? The Bible gives no number, and that absence is strange, especially when Genesis is full of detailed ages and genealogies. Ancient Jewish writings claim Adam lived hundreds of years before Cain and Abel were born, while early Christian scholars argued Eden existed in a timeless realm where aging had no power. Yet modern science says anatomically, modern humans have existed for more than 200,000 years, supported by genetic markers and fossil evidence. These timelines don't align unless the world before the fall wasn't governed by our physics, biology, or time. What follows is a journey into the Bible, ancient tradition, and science, trying to understand a world humanity was never meant to forget. The Bible describes Eden as a physical place planted by God, Genesis 2:8, yet filled with supernatural qualities, rivers flowing from an unnamed source, trees that grant life, and a direct relationship between humans and God without limitation. In Scripture, Adam and Eve had no disease, no shame, and no death, because death enters only after sin, Romans 5:12. This suggests that Adam did not age biologically the way humans do after the fall. His body operated in a state described in 1 Corinthians 15, a glorified or incorruptible form. In this biblical worldview, aging and decay were never part of creation's design. Therefore, time itself, as we measure it, had no authority over humanity in Eden. Ancient Jewish and early Christian writings, such as the Book of Jubilees, Midrash Rabbah, and the writings of Irenaeus, suggest Adam lived a long period in Eden before the birth of his sons. Some sources interpret the gap in Genesis as evidence that Adam lived centuries in an ageless state, because his recorded lifespan of 930 years begins counting only after the fall. Jewish mystics described Adam's pre-fall state as clothed in radiance, a divine energy protecting him from corruption. In this view, Adam didn't grow older. He existed. Because time without death cannot be measured, days only matter when they end. Science, however, offers a very different timeline. Through radiometric dating, DNA analysis, and fossil records, and anthropology places modern human origins at 200,000 to 300,000 years ago. Studies of mitochondrial DNA show a near-extinction bottleneck roughly 70,000 years ago, where humanity may have descended from a very small population. This leads some scientists to propose a theory of a genetic Adam and Eve, not the biblical couple, but a founder pair. Yet science also admits a mystery. Human consciousness, language, and morality appear suddenly in the archaeological record without gradual evolution. Something changed humanity rapidly, but science cannot explain what. Some theologians and historians have tried to reconcile these contradictory timelines by proposing that Eden existed outside the physical universe we now live in. In this interpretation, the fall was not just moral, it was dimensional. Humanity was forced from a timeless environment into a temporal one, where decay, entropy, and death affect all living things. This matches the scientific principle that time is inseparable from decay. If no decay existed, time could not be measured. Therefore, Adam could live centuries in Eden and appear youthful, with no internal record of time passing. Genesis 3:19 reveals the moment when biology changed. For dust you are, and to dust you shall return. Ancient scholars interpreted this as the introduction of mortality, not merely punishment, but transformation. The loss of the glory covering meant the body became subject to entropy, cellular breakdown, disease, and aging. Interestingly, modern biology agrees. Aging is the result of entropy, genetic mutation, and cellular degradation. Before such systems existed, death would be biologically impossible. This might explain why early humans in Genesis lived unusually long lives, decreasing in lifespan as human genetics deteriorated over generations. So, how long were Adam and Eve in Eden? The Bible gives no answer. Ancient tradition says a very long time, but refuses to quantify it. Science says human origins stretch across hundreds of thousands of years, but cannot explain the sudden rise of human intellect and morality. The most radical interpretation is this: Eden was a realm outside measurable time. It could have been thousands, millions, or billions of years, a duration irrelevant to those who never aged. If that is true, then the reason Scripture is silent is simple. Humans cannot measure a world before measurement existed. The tragedy of Eden is not simply exile, it is amnesia. Humanity entered a world where wisdom decays, memory fades, bodies break, and time ends every moment. The Bible's silence may be intentional, implying that the world of perfection cannot be compressed into chronology. The ancient rabbi said, "The first world cannot be understood by those who live in the second." In other words, the human mind, trapped inside time, cannot conceptualize eternity. Maybe Eden wasn't lost because God erased it. Maybe humanity lost access because it is impossible for beings bound to decay to exist in a realm that never dies. Science can study fossils and DNA, but cannot measure a world without time. The Bible can describe Eden but cannot quantify eternity. An ancient tradition can remember fragments, but not time itself. Perhaps that is why Genesis remains silent on the years before the fall. Because Eden wasn't a chapter in history, it was the world before history began.